I've always had conflicting thoughts about high-speed wide-angle lenses. Not the 54-degree horizontal view of a 17mm, which does a good impression of a standard lens when necessary, but the 60 degrees or more of 14mm and wider lenses. Conflicting because while you could argue that faster is better, you can always stop down after all. The penalty paid in cost, size and weight is considerable. And conflicting because if you want shallow depth of field, a wide-angle lens is the last lens you should buy, since a short focal length lens in micro four thirds has an inherently wide depth of field, which a wide aperture cannot mask. What's more, in most wide-angle shots, depth of field is what you want. That scenic vista with the big rock in the foreground doesn't look so hot if the vista is out of focus. Shallow depth of field is often most desired in portraiture, but I'd suggest that if you get close enough for even a fast 12mm to blur the background, the kudos you gain for creamy bokeh will be lost in the horror of the 12-inch up-your-nose perspective. Aardvark's snout, boss-eyed gaze, and a thicket of nasal hair are par for the course for Hieronymus Bosch, but for young Maisie from Accounts' model agency portfolio, not really. Nevertheless, while I may have doubts about the point of very fast wide angles, many photographers will have uses for them that I haven't thought about. If you do, Panasonic present to you an apparently plain, no-frills 12mm whose claim to fame is an unusually wide aperture of f1.4. The only control on the lens is the autofocus manual switch. There's no stabilization. It's a Leica designated lens, Summilux no less, and feels solid and heavy. At 335 grams, or just under 3/4 of a pound, heavy is a comparative term of course. Manual focusing is as smooth as you could wish, though without closest focus and infinity stops as with most Panasonic lenses. That doesn't bother me a lot since I set the focus scale to appear on screen when using manual focus. The lens also sports Panasonic's manual aperture ring forward of the focusing ring. Logically, I don't see the point of it, yet I do use it, finding something oddly reassuring at seeing physical evidence of my setting when working fast. Normally I just leave it on A though. The neat supplied hood slips on and off easily with a pinch. The lens has sealing against water and dust ingression, though I'd still take precautions to protect it since the sealing of cameras is less rigorous than that of smartphones for instance. In use the lens is straightforward, focus is smooth, and manual focus easier than most 12mm because of the f1.4 aperture. It's a nice size for a lens, filling the hand but not filling out of proportion on a smaller micro four thirds body. In terms of sharpness it's stunning in the centre, even at f1.4. And stopping down doesn't improve it because, well, any improvement would be a matter of lab testing rather than viewing a picture. The edges at f1.4 are, as you'd expect, not so good, but perfectly okay for normal, non-critical work like street photography. Stop down to f2 and they improve and stay much the same through to f8, where diffraction starts to take the edge off. In the f2 to f8 range the edges are pretty good, though nothing special. I'll come back to that in my summing up. Purple fringing and distortion are all but absent, and single focus speed is the usual micro four thirds instantaneous. Continuous autofocus has few uses on a wide angle, and it's hard to judge how efficient it is where subject size goes from small to large so quickly due to the steep perspective. If you do use it for sports or action, it's generally better to stop down to f4 or 5/6 at a preset distance and let the extensive depth of field take care of focus. I've done an interesting scientific sharpness comparison between several 12mm examples here. It involves pointing the camera at a can, taking a picture, and then looking at the results. The results surprised me, but were repeatable. Of course, I can only try with the copy of the lens I possess, but I can say that I use each of these lenses and get razor-sharp pictorial results in real-world usage. The surprise is how well the 12 to 32mm Panasonic zoom stands up. My overall impression of this Panasonic Leica is that like all its Leica branded siblings, it is a pleasure to make pictures with it. It's expensive, as any lens with these specs will be, and it is slightly compromised, again as any lens of this spec will be, so it only makes sense photographically if you really do need that f1.4 aperture. The wide aperture will render shallower depth of field, not shallow per se. Its real use will be simply for wide-angle shooting in very low light. Olympus's 12mm prime is a stop slower at f2 and has very similar performance at half the price. There are plenty of zooms with the 12mm 72-degree horizontal angle of view, but they are all 2 stops slower at least, plus some third-party manual focus primes. However, if you have the need for speed and can justify the money, this is a good choice. Actually, it's your only choice. Thanks for watching.